The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content and is sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Hair Care.
This is where the Canadian rainforest meets the Pacific Ocean. It's a spectacular setting. But one of the reasons we're here this week is because scientists continue to predict a global warming crisis due to the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And thanks to fossil fuels, there's 25% more CO2 in the atmosphere now than there was a century ago. And to make matters worse, the Earth's natural defense against this disaster, forests, according to some environmentalists, are disappearing at alarming rates. Hi, I'm Corey James, and this is Today's Environment. In this special edition from Canada, we'll examine some solutions in progress today that may help sustain our forests for tomorrow. Want to meet man's best friend? Well, you might think it's a four-legged shaggy creature who'll fetch you the morning paper. But it could be a tall, thin, branchy spruce, pine, or oak. Trees purify our air. They provide vital wood products, and they also beautify the planet. Now, if that's not friendship, I don't know what is.
Some call them nature's cathedrals. Thick, lush forests reaching up towards the heavens. To many, merely viewing the splendor of this natural wonder comes close to a religious experience. But the Earth's forests do far more than enrich us spiritually. Every acre of young growing forest can eliminate 3 to 5 tons of carbon dioxide from our atmosphere each year. In return, those same trees give us back the oxygen vital for our survival and provide a living habitat for thousands of plant and animal species. Since ancient times, when humans began to build shelter from the elements, timber has been used as a renewable natural resource. Today's society simply could not function without the paper that comes from wood pulp.
So this is where the debate starts. If trees are critical to the planet while standing, as they are as raw materials, well then how do we go about striking a sustainable balance between the two acts?
This important question is prompting foresters, engineers, biologists, and environmentalists to develop standards of practice called sustainable forest management. Here in Canada, where forest areas cover nearly half of the landmass, these principles help steer organizations like the Forest Alliance and the Canadian Pulp and Paper Association. While the government preserves immense tracts of forest which will never be touched, many companies involved in producing wood products are attempting to ensure that they use forest practices that will sustain the forests as a permanent renewable resource.
Sustainable forest management practices are very important to all of us because, for one thing, they provide us with the economic values of the forest, and yet they protect all environmental, social, recreational, and all the values that are found in the forest, but in a way that never compromises future generations' possibilities of meeting their own needs.
Responsible forest management includes far more than rotating the harvest areas to allow for regrowth. Any sustainable solution must plan for pollution prevention, wildlife management, erosion control, and the social impact on all people in resource communities. Several different harvesting techniques exist that can allow trees to be removed from designated areas with a minimal impact on the ecosystem. New seedlings are planted to replace harvested timber and regenerate the forest in the areas that are logged. And here in Canada, over 700 million trees get planted every year in order to augment the natural regeneration.
What would we do without trees? Or for that matter, what would we do without wood products? Well, hopefully, sustainable forest management will allow us to strike that proper balance between the use of forests for our economy and sustaining them for our survival.
A plastic six-pack ring can be a hangman's noose for marine animals. So snip your rings and save a seal. Get involved with Today's Environment today.
Let's talk about forest renewal. Consider the fact that every drop of oil that was burned in the Gulf War has left this planet forever. Now, when you consider the fact that trees live, trees die, and trees grow back, responsibly managing that circle of life will help sustain our quality of life.
Can you spot potential?
According to the World Resources Institute, this scrawny little sapling has the ability to eliminate nearly 400 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere over its lifetime. Now, with that in mind, it would seem that we owe every breath we take to trees and plants.
That's why even though they may contain renewable raw materials, forests must be considered precious resources. Well-meaning individuals who advocate a hands-off approach to our forests may actually be condemning them to death. In many countries where the trees have no economic value, millions of wooded acres get burned and turned into more profitable cattle pastures. It may seem ironic, but a responsible wood products industry might actually be a forest's best hope for survival. Leaders in the logging, lumber, and paper industries know that if they don't sustain the forests won't sustain their businesses. Maintaining healthy, thriving forests is vital to maintaining the strength of the economy, and renewing harvested areas stands out as a critical task in responsible forest management. In the wooded areas designated for harvesting, scientists who specialize in silviculture or the study of growing and tending forests use a combination of natural regeneration, planting, and aerial seeding to get harvested acres developing back into healthy forests. Some estimates give nature the credit for nurturing about 15 billion new trees every year. Sometimes thinning is necessary to maximize growth of selected trees. During that same time, the Canadian government and industries plant about 700 million saplings and use aerial seeding to further ensure that each year many more trees are born than are harvested. Clearing a small area often allows for better regrowth than taking the best trees selectively from a larger area, because young seedlings don't have to compete with older trees for sunlight, water, and nutrients. That can allow them to grow stronger and healthier.
A new forest would take between 80 and 100 years to grow to maturity. Our forest can sustain a growing forest industry forever, because it is a known fact due to research that we can increase productivity of our forest by a factor of about 5.
By taking a limited number of trees each year from the designated cutting areas and replanting those sites, they can continue to use wood as a raw material virtually forever without jeopardizing other important concerns. A recently harvested area may look like this. Within a year, the foundation of a new forest has begun reaching towards the heavens. In 5 years, the trees have already created a thick blanket over the area, and in 10 years, a thriving young forest begins to blend in with the older forest nearby.
No one would deny that a hole in the forest is unsightly at best, and waiting for a forest to grow up can often seem like a long time. But on this earth where demand is high and resources are scarce, responsibly planning how we can use what we can renew may bring us one step closer to a more sustainable planet. A little technology can go a long way, especially when it comes to extending our forest resources. We cannot afford to waste any part of a tree. New ideas, innovations, and some impressive hardware are helping us to get a lot more out of a little less.
The right stuff. Those words certify a winning attitude in fighter pilots, but they also describe the new tools and equipment that may be necessary to secure the sustainability of our forests. High technology offers us a new arsenal of techniques and machinery to minimize intrusion on the forest and maximize output of wood products. Computerized sawmills use cutting-edge software to efficiently analyze the dimensions of each log and design the most productive cut. Razor-thin, high-speed saw blades made from advanced alloys help minimize waste and maximize the usable lumber that comes from every harvested tree. Innovative processes can recapture and use all sawdust, chips, and waste wood for fiberboard or pulp making. Even parts of the treetops and broken pieces not suitable for lumber enter this waste mix and become a useful raw material. At a modern lumber mill, the goal for zero waste may become a reality within the near future. New technology may also stand out as an environmental hero in today's pulp and paper mills. Computerized operations help efficiently process the tons of waste collected at the lumber mill and turn it into high-grade pulp. Innovative paper recycling systems now make it possible for much of the raw material in the paper industry to come from the landfill rather than the forest. Old newspapers, corrugated boxes, and discarded computer printouts have been transformed from waste into a valuable resource. Recent improvements make it possible to create paper products using only lumber mill waste and recycled paper. In many cases, not one tree falls to produce the pulp necessary to manufacture paper.
You might find this hard to believe, but the U.S. Forest Service is the biggest road construction agency in the world. Now that's because in order to get harvested trees out, they very often have to plow a road right through the heart of the forest.
But here in Canada, using heavy lift helicopters to carry logs above the tree line can be a far less intrusive approach and helps prevent the need for an army of logging trucks thundering through the pristine timberlands.
Harvesting trees is a privilege, which is combined to obligations. A key technology or a key point in protecting the environment is not spoiling the resource that we harvest. The forest industry is really in the heart of the environment, and we have the environment at heart.
Paul Bunyan only had an axe and an ox, but today's loggers can choose from a sophisticated arsenal of equipment and machinery. Now, hopefully, all of these technological innovations can reduce our impact when we go into the forest, so we can help keep our environment out of the woods.
If fish could talk, they'd be mad as hell. Every year, 14 billion tons of trash get dumped in the ocean. Bring litter back to the dock and recycle it. Get involved with today's environment today.
You've probably heard the old cliche, there's no use crying over spilt milk. Now, whether it's true or not, somebody still has to clean up the mess, and it makes good sense to try and prevent it from happening again. Well, on this planet, pollution's our mess. The solution? Clean it up and prevent it.
In the beginning, there was nature, and it was good. But then, pollution was created, and nature was defiled, devoured, and nearly defeated. Somehow, the environment survived the onslaught, and now many citizens, governments, and industries accept responsibility for past mistakes. They've launched programs to clean up pollution from previous excesses and prevent it from ever happening again. Comprehensive pollution cleanup and prevention programs launched by companies now address the issues posed by their operations. Water pollution once threatened the thriving salmon populations that spawned in the rivers of the Canadian forests. The problem stemmed from excess soil erosion, sedimentation, and harmful effluent releases from pulp and paper processing operations and other industries. The adoption of responsible forestry practices has ushered in changes to prevent this in the future. Immediate replanting in buffer zones of untouched forest along riverbanks can help reduce water quality problems due to sedimentation and erosion. In the pulp and paper industry, several ongoing programs help meet the challenge of water pollution head-on. The introduction of new technology and systems holds the potential of conserving huge volumes of water per ton of production. Engineers and researchers continue to develop designs for effluent-free processes, and improved water treatment and handling systems help ensure that no harmful liquid wastes escape to the environment. Already, the combined results of these programs show great promise for expanding salmon populations and the health of other fisheries. And it appears that the fish are jumping for joy over the improved state of their rivers. Since over 10% of the world's fresh water flows through the Canadian forests, preventing water pollution at this source serves a global purpose. Other programs that should improve both air and water seek to reduce or eliminate hazardous chemicals from operations. Waste elimination is an important factor in pollution prevention, and using recyclable paper helps eliminate millions of tons of paper from the waste stream. Reducing the pollution that exists and preventing it from happening again stands out as a two-step process that just may help bring our planet a little closer to its original untarnished state. And hopefully we'll never again forget that the face of this earth is a natural beauty.
Some people have said that a camel is a horse made in committee. Now, that rather glib remark, I think, comes from the frustration of getting a group of people to agree on anything. Responsibly managing a forest requires consensus from many stakeholders, often with opposing points of view, which leaves you and I to ask, is it possible? Let's watch.
Forest ecosystems offer so many potential benefits that it's often difficult to decide their best use.
The theory of multi-stakeholder consensus and community involvement is that you identify the problems before they happen. The worst thing you can do is have a forestry company come in and develop an area and start building roads, and then people start to complain that, hey, we don't want a road there, or we don't want these trees cut here. You should have those answers and figure that stuff out before you actually go in and do it.
Now, that's the theory, but how does all this work in practice? Well, right now in 10 model forests across Canada, they're trying to find out.
A model forest is not so much related to the actual trees, but to the planning process and the involvement of all the people in the community. The model forest idea means that you form a partnership with local communities, with native groups, with foresters, with companies, with tourism, and with all the people who are working in that area of forest in order to plan the forestry operations in such a way that everybody gets a benefit and everybody gets a piece of the pie.
To understand the complexity, it's important to meet the stakeholders. Economically, the logging, lumber, and pulp and paper industries need the trees for raw materials. Since Canada leads the world in the export of forest products, these industries provide an important source of jobs and revenue to the economy. To environmentalists, maintaining forests and preserving their biodiversity stands out as a major mission to restore and sustain the health of this planet. To native cultures, like members of the First Nations tribes, use of the timberlands affects all areas of their heritage, society, and livelihood. The wondrous scenery and spectacular forest vistas attract people from all over the world, and tourist-based businesses also have a vested stake in the management of the forests. In fact, the better all sectors of the economy perform, the better the tourist industry thrives. With so many conflicting interests, you might think a room full of stakeholders could be a smoldering powder keg. But experience is showing that consensus, compromise, and cooperation can occur and result in workable decisions. One recent example of multi-stakeholder consensus resulted in what's now known as the Clayoquot Compromise. After some heated debate, a working compromise was reached that provided for forest and wildlife preservation, logging operations, and scenic enhancements. Working together before action is taken just may help to sustain and preserve this magnificent ecosystem here on the Pacific coast of British Columbia.
Managing forests by consensus and compromise is not always a Shangri-La. Sometimes the fights can get heated and the feuds can get bitter, but hopefully in the end, the goals and objectives of the special interest groups will come together into a balanced plan that'll benefit everyone involved. Hope, help, and healing. A global commitment to sustainable forest development is helping to reverse the shameful tide of deforestation. And if properly managed, many replanted young forests can become the ancient timberlands of generations to come. I hope this special edition gave you some insight into the critical importance of forests on this planet. Join us again next time as we explore more environmental solutions on today's environment.
If you know of any interesting environmental success stories, call us at 407-997-9800. This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.